This is Danny Gould with the Gould team, selling Silicon Valley, here today with Cheryl Lawton, principal of Branham High School here in San Jose. Cheryl, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to start off by introducing yourself to all of Silicon Valley and letting them know a little bit more about yourself, and then we can talk about Branham.
Sounds good. I can talk about Branham forever because it's an amazing school. My name is Cheryl Lawton, and I've been the principal at Branham since 2016. I cannot feel honored enough to have been able to take over as lead for this amazing school. But I have about 30 years in education. I started off as a math teacher, working in East Los Angeles, moved up to the Bay Area, followed my husband to Silicon Valley, and have been here for about 25 years, working at the middle school, high school, community college levels, doing a variety of different jobs, and got into administration kind of inadvertently, even though I had no interest in it, and I actually love this job. Someday I'd like to be back in the classroom, at least part-time, because I miss it. But
got it. So
so that's my background.
Got it. So prior to being a principal, then you were a teacher.
Yes.
And what did you teach?
Math.
Math.
Yes. So I have that's my passion too. That's my other passion is math.
Right.
I'm a little bit of a math geek still.
Right.
But
well,
I'll do whatever I can to. Oh, that's good. All right, perfect. I guess you have to be in your job.
Oh, Cheryl. Well, that's interesting. I mean, obviously, I want to talk about Branham, but now might be a great time to talk about the Valdez Institute, because I know that you were instrumental in bringing that back. And so, as somebody that was actually a part of the Valdez Institute, maybe you want to give people a little information or insight on that as well, and talk about your role in its resurgence.
That I would love to do that too. So Valdez Institute started in 1989 as the brainchild of Jose Valdez, who was a Cuban immigrant to the United States. He was actually a math teacher in Cuba, but came here, and of course can't be a teacher if you taught somewhere else. You have to start from scratch. So he actually worked as a janitor at Andrew Hill High School while he was getting his teaching credential here. Noticed that there were no brown kids or students of color in the higher level math classes, and they were all in the remedial basic classes, and just said, this is ridiculous. Why? And it was because they were all being placed into remedial classes in the middle schools and elementary schools. They weren't getting the support they needed, and nobody else was pushing them. So he got some funding and started the Valdez Institute, and went real well. It was growing. We served about 2,500 students every summer at its peak. Unfortunately, the economy died in 2006, 2007, and Eastside High School District decided that they couldn't afford to support it anymore. So a group of us, former teachers, students, parents, got together and started a nonprofit foundation to keep it going. So still going strong today. We're getting close to about 800 students every summer that we're serving. We're grateful to San Jose City College and Evergreen and Stanford for providing space for us at no charge, we've been really fortunate.
That's amazing.
And our kids are doing amazing things. I mean, absolutely great things. We're seeing now that we have students of students that are coming into the program. So we have a lot of students whose parents were involved, and some of our teachers even were in it themselves, even from the very beginning, and their kids have been through. We have one grandchild now.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's been going on for a long time.
That's amazing.
I'm proud to be part of that. I really am, to see how many students it's been helping.
Absolutely. And what's your role in all of that right now?
So right now I just serve on the board. I'm the vice president of the foundation board.
Awesome.
But our goal is to keep it funded so that we can provide it at no cost to students. We want them to, this is for students that are far, far below basic. We're not talking they just need a little bit of help, which is what most of the other math programs in the area do. They find that group of kids. It just needs a little bit. We're working with the kids that are really far behind, with 5th, 6th, 7th graders, that there's no way they're going to make it through through high school if they don't get some remediation. So our goal is to get them caught up so they're ready for algebra by the 9th grade.
Got it.
And then go, and what's cool is watching them get there and then go. And
right.
We had probably our best success story is a few years ago. One of the students who started off really low math class stayed with us for a couple summers and ended up graduating, finished calculus, went off to Harvard as a neurobiology major. And
wow.
yeah, it's really cool.
Wow. That's incredible.
We see a lot of that.
That's amazing. Okay, great. So, Valdez aside, great program. Let's talk a little bit about Branham then, and I know that you just started here very recently.
Yeah, a year ago. Well, right. 2016. I don't know how long when this is going to be shown. But.
Right. Soon. Yeah. Right. So 2016. So you've been here for just a little bit over a year now. Mm-hmm. So take us through what the last year has been like, and then perhaps some of the earlier, history of Branham up until you got here and through this last year.
So Branham actually has a really interesting history. They were opened in 1967, and this plot of land was actually designated by the county as a high school site, but nobody had claimed it officially yet based on the research that I've seen done. So Campbell High School District, even though this was in San Jose, both where Lee is located, where Del Mar is located, where Branham is located, the Campbell High School District Board decided to snatch up those places before San Jose Unified had the opportunity to do it. And so that's why we're part of Campbell High School District and not San Jose Unified. So yeah, it is kind of interesting. But we're actually named after Isaac Branham, who was one of the early city council members and I guess very big in the community. So I didn't realize that too. I thought it was just named after a street, but I found out, no, it's actually, that's why the street is named Branham.
Awesome.
So anyway, that's who it's named after. We were growing enrollment, and then I don't know what happened in the 1980s, but all of a sudden people started moving out of the area with high school age students, and the enrollment dropped in the south end of the district, so they closed the school in 1989, and we were closed for 10 years, rented out to Valley Christian.
Oh, really?
And
okay.
Any students in the area all went to Lee or to other high schools in the district.
Got it.
But then the enrollment started growing again, and they reopened in 1999. So kind of got a fresh start, got to hire new staff, got to bring in a whole new philosophy, if you want to call it that, and decided, let's go. So we've had, I'm the I'm the fifth principal since 1999, since they reopened. And we've had a big change over in the last couple of years. There's been, I'm the third one in the last 4 years, I guess.
Sure.
But I really am excited about where the school's going. It's not always been the case, but our goal, school-wide, you ask any staff member, our goal is to get our students college and career ready. Mm-hmm. You can't, and the line now is so blurred, you can't say, I'm going to go to college, I'm going to go straight to a job, because you don't know. I mean, everything requires the same skills. They require communication, collaboration, critical thinking, creativity. Doesn't matter what you're doing, you have to have those skills. So we want to prepare all of them for everything.
That's great. So, for potential home buyers, people that are looking to purchase in the area, that are considering purchasing a home in the Branham High School, boundaries, how would you describe, Branham High School to those folks?
I can truly say, because I lived in the area. I lived in the area for about 25 years.
So how would you describe, Branham High School then to potential home buyers that are looking to purchase a home in the Branham High School boundaries?
So I lived in the Branham area for about 20 years. I've recently moved a few, about a mile away, but lived in the area for a long time, at least before it closed. It was kind of a nondescript school. I drove by it all the time. Nobody really ever talked about Branham, so I just saw it as a school. It was just a school. Right. And even, I would say probably within the last 5 or 6 years, all of a sudden people are talking about it. I think word's getting out that we're not just a school, we're a good school, and we do good things here, and especially now with the focus on really pushing the students and making sure that we're holding students accountable for learning. We're holding our staff accountable for making sure the students are learning, that the students are prepared to be able to go out and do whatever they want to do. The word's getting out, and I think the vibe is a lot more positive than it used to be. I don't think we really had a bad reputation. We were just a school. Right. And just kind of nondescript. Nobody really talked about it, but we're getting a lot of calls now. We have a lot of people moving to the area because they want to send their kids to Branham. We have a lot of people asking to transfer here from other districts and from even other schools in the district. And I think the word's getting out that if you want a quality education, come to our school. You don't need to be paying for a private school. You can come to Branham instead.
Well, we'll get there in a second, right? That's definitely one of the questions. So, talk about maybe some of the programs that you offer here that you don't find at a typical high school?
So that's an area we're still working on. I think being closed for a while, we didn't go through a lot of the remodeling that was done in the 1990s throughout the rest of the district. So we haven't been able to do some of the programs we want. That will be happening in the future. We have a really strong engineering program right now on our campus, and that is continuing to grow. We're seeing more students involved. We have a really strong arts program, music program, some of those things that students are finding their niches in. We're looking at starting some kind of a business pathway on the campus. We have so many students that we know are interested in going into business and entrepreneurship and things like that, but we don't have the courses for those. So we're talking to some of the community colleges about partnering with them, seeing what we can do about reaching out to the local business community for internships and opportunities for the students to get out and practice some skills. But we're looking at adding more programs like that in the future so that we can give the students more of a variety of job opportunities, or at least exploration opportunities, so that they're not graduating going, I have absolutely no idea what I want to do.
Right.
We also have an advisory program on campus. We have 30 minutes every day, or at least 4 days a week, embedded into the schedule, so students use that time for tutorial to go get help in their classes, and then also an advisory class where they kind of gives them an extra opportunity to bond with an adult on campus and get all of those extra skills that you can't get in a regular class. Where do you do your college exploration, your career exploration? Where do you learn about financial planning and what a FICO score is, how to find a job, and
I still don't know what that is, Cheryl, so I don't even know.
All that kind of stuff. But that's another thing, that there aren't a lot of schools that do that within the school, and we've got a pretty successful program.
Well, that's actually really interesting to hear, because even myself, I public education, elementary school, middle school, and then went to private high school, right? Never heard anything about finance or a lot of really practical, real world things that, quite frankly, I feel are just completely missing from the education system right now.
I agree.
Which, it's really refreshing to hear that's something that you guys are focusing on, because I think that's important, right? Regardless of where you end up going to college, right?
Right.
So, okay, talk about the growth then that you guys, envision over the next 5 years.
So we're definitely growing. This part of town, I don't know what is happening here. I'm guessing it's just because there isn't anything else affordable in the area and people are moving this direction. But while the northern part of our district is kind of declining or stable, Lee and Branham are seeing huge growth in our area. So we were at about 1,350 students 3 or 4 years ago. We're going to be at 1,750 this coming year. We're projected to go somewhere between 1,900 and 2,000 by 2022. We do not have the space, clearly, on our campus. Right now, everybody's on top of each other. We've got every space being used for something. So Measure A was passed recently. They're going to be using that. We have some portables being installed in the next couple weeks out over on the tennis courts to house kind of temporary classrooms.
Okay.
And they're going to start knocking things down and putting in some nice, beautiful 2-story buildings on the campus, including whole new science wing that's going to have all the state-of-the-art science labs and equipment and everything else. I can't wait. Our teachers are thrilled too. They're working in classrooms with 50-year-old stuff right now.
Sure. So how many years is that going to take in order to...
We're actually looking at a prefabricated building, so they're saying we'll have the first one up within a year.
Oh, so, wow. Oh, okay.
We'll see it. I'm curious, but...
Yeah.
Well, I want to see it happen, but we're excited. So it's going to be rough. The next couple of years is going to be a little rough with the construction, but I think the final outcome is going to look good. It's going to look good. The layout from the street is going to look nice. Not going to be as big, and everyone's worried about these big and some industrial-looking thing in this area just not working. But they're doing some neat designs.
Awesome. So, what are the top 3 goals then, Cheryl? For Branham? For you personally as the principal, right? What are your top 3 goals?
Fortunately, my goals are everybody else's goals here, which is good. So absolute number one is making sure that we have a safe campus and that students feel like they can come on campus, they can do what they need to do and not have to worry about looking over their back because someone's going to jump them or something else is going to happen. Fortunately, there aren't a lot of schools like that anymore.
Yeah.
But that they feel safe to be able to express themselves in a respectful way.
Right.
And that they're not going to get bullied and all of that and harassed and all that kind of stuff. We have a really welcoming student body here that basically embraces everyone on the planet. They constantly, even before I started working here, I was asking kind of people around. I'd run into students at the grocery store or whatever. So tell me, I see I have Branham stuff on. Tell me about Branham. Oh, it's great. It's a family. We all support each other. It doesn't matter who you are, what you like, what you care about. Everybody will be nice to you and support you. So number one goal is safe campus. Second one is we want to make sure that we prepare all the kids for whatever they want to do when they graduate. So ideally, we won't have a bunch of different tracks and, you're going to go to college, so you take these classes, and you're going to just go to work, so you take these classes. Everybody needs to take the same classes and get the same rigor, because they change their minds. Teenagers change their minds so many times. Adults change their minds so many times. I want to give them the option to be able to do whatever they want to do. All the doors are open when they graduate. So that's second goal. Third is we got to make sure we hire the best staff on the planet to make sure that happens. And that's been my goal since I've been here, is making sure we have the absolute best people on our campus. And if we don't, then encourage them to look other places for things. So
awesome.
Fortunately, most of them are not looking.
Yeah.
And I don't want them to look. We got some pretty awesome people here.
That's great. So on a slightly different note, let's talk about the parent and community involvement. What is that like right now, and if you had more, what would you do with it?
So I think that's the downside of living in this area and being in Silicon Valley, is everybody's so busy.
Right.
And because it's expensive, most of our families, any adult in the house is working. They don't have a lot of time to be involved in the school, and they work far away, so they can't get here just because of traffic and other things. But I think ideally, most important is, if parents can't be involved in what's happening at the school, that they're involved with their kids. And from there, we can work together to do the other stuff. But first and foremost, they got to be involved with their kids. Have a conversation with them, talk to them, find out what they like, what they don't, what their strengths are, what they need help with. And if they need help with something, work with the school to make sure they get the help that they need. So it's not just the parents, not just the school. We've got to work together as a team. Ultimately, I would love for them all to be involved in the school too. But I think probably just even getting involved in parent organizations or coming to workshops, school events, even if it's just once a year, being able to participate in something on the campus. We can always use guest speakers. We can always use volunteers to help with tutoring. We don't have a lot of money for support services for our students, so we rely on volunteers a lot to come in and, like I said, help with tutoring, help with just general student support, with test preparation, like SAT preparation, things like that.
Got it.
Guest speakers to talk about their jobs, talk about careers. So places we can always use. Or people looking for interns over the summer and they don't want to have to pay anything. We've got plenty of students that are willing to learn for nothing.
Awesome. Okay, so I want to shift the conversation a little bit right now. I know that right now in Silicon Valley, or not right now, but I feel like there has been, over the past decade or two, this lingering question amongst parents, if they have the means, should I send my student or child to public school, or should I send them to private school, right? So I want to hear what your thoughts are on that, classic debate.
I could talk for a really long time on that one.
Well, we got a long time here, so.
I'm not going to do that. But I have a really hard time with people that feel like their kids can't get a good public education. They have to send them to private school. I've been around the public school environment my entire life. I've worked in enough of them. I've visited enough of them. And they're good. They're all good. I haven't ever been to a school or seen a school that's bad. And if a student wants a good education, they're going to get a good education. I think from a public school standpoint, especially in this area, I know there's still a lot of parents that are afraid to send their kids to school in certain places because they're just, for whatever reason, they look at the number. What is it? It's a number on a piece of on the website somewhere that says,
right,
oh, this school's only a 5 or a 6 or 7 compared to everything else. Oh, it must be bad. Or their API score is only 600 and something. It must be a bad school. A test score has absolutely nothing to do with the quality of a school. There's so many other factors to it. So I guess I challenge people, pick up the cover a little bit. Don't just look at the outside and what the perception is. Look at what's actually happening. Go and talk with the principal, talk with students, talk with parents, and find out. I think probably the best gauge is look at the public schools in the if you're considering one, do I send my kid to the private school or a public school? Find out how many teachers work at the school and send their kids there, because that's a pretty good indicator. And I've worked in a school at one point in my career where every single teacher on that campus that lived in the area sent their kids to private school.
Right.
And that was a huge indicator for me that, okay, and I was not an administrator at the time, I was a teacher there, but that said a lot. Because if you're not willing to send your own kids to that school, then there's some problems. And right now, I know of at least 7 of our staff members whose kids are all going here, so it makes me feel good.
Right. Well, I do want to explore, I mean, we can just call it out and say it, the great schools, syndrome.
Yeah.
It perplexes me a lot of times, how, a home buyer's decision will be directly correlated to what they see on that website. And when you talk to administrators such as yourself, and when I've talked to administrators, sometimes everything isn't always as it appears, and that goes both ways, right?
True.
I mean, we talk about, I don't want to call out anything in particular here, there are schools that are 9s and 10s, right, where these kids have severe psychological issues because they're getting it from at home, and they're getting it at school, right? And sometimes I feel when I talk to certain parents, it's all about the number, and they don't realize how much more it has to do with what's going on back home too, and also that there are just so many underlying factors that a number cannot describe. Right? So maybe a good question for you would be, what are some instances that you see in which a number, not like specifics in terms of schools, but what I'm saying is that where sometimes everything isn't always it is.
Give you a perfect example.
Yes, please do.
And I serve as a chair on WASC committees, which is part of the accreditation for high schools. So I visit a lot of high schools and see a lot of things. And I've been to ones that are 9s and 10s in great schools, and ones that are 4s and 5s. There's really not a whole lot of difference in what's going on in the classroom environment. It's basically the community. A lot of it has to do with the community. If you are in an area where the parents have the means to provide private tutors for their kids, so if they're struggling, hey, I can pay $100 an hour and get a tutor for my student. I can afford to send them to a psychologist. I can afford to send them to SAT prep and all these other things. Kids are going to be successful. They're going to do well. They're going to take AP classes. They're going to do what they need to do. And you're right, the number doesn't capture all the other pieces of what's going on for that student. I can't say if you talk to all the students that the ones coming out of the 9 and 10 schools are going to say, the best experience I ever had in my life, fabulous school. A lot of them are going to say that. You can get the same exact thing from a 4 and 5 school. But that school, maybe 90% of their kids are English learners, and English is their second language, and so they're not scoring as well on the AP tests because they don't have access to all of the other supports in place. And the schools don't have the means to do that. Doesn't mean they're not offering the programs, and if the students want to take it and do stuff that they have access, they can still do that. Just they don't have the people pushing as hard. And the kids, and maybe they're passing the AP tests with 3s instead of with 5s, but they're doing 3s on their own. I mean, they're passing it on their own without any additional stuff. And I see that all the time. I have friends that are real estate agents, and it used to drive me absolutely crazy when they say, yeah, I have this couple, they're looking for a home, but they don't want to move to that area because of the school. And I've been in that school. It's a fantastic school. Their programs are great. Yeah, their scores aren't as good as the school over there, but there's nothing wrong with it. It's a safe school. The teachers are fantastic. They care about the kids. Take a chance.
Right. It's so interesting to me, and having gone to Stanford and seeing those kids, that come from all different backgrounds, by the way. I mean, there are kids that are coming from one schools, from Detroit, and then also top boarding schools across the country. So you get all kinds. And then what fascinates me is that the great equalizer is that the motivation has to come from within.
Exactly.
You can't fabricate that. That's right? And a lot of times when it's artificially implemented at home, oftentimes when they go to college they fall off, and it's
one of the things we have to continuously tell students, and more often parents, is a B is not failing. You're not failing if you get a B. It's okay to get a B. In fact, I have a poster on my wall over there that says, it's written by a college admissions officer from Stanford, actually. It said, it's okay to get a B. We actually encourage it because spend your time doing other things besides just school. In fact, right now, grades are kind of moving down on the list and GPAs and all that because everybody's got A's. Everybody's got the same grade point averages. What else are you doing to make yourself well-rounded? If all you can do is school, they don't want you anymore because they want people that can participate in other things and be a little bit more well-rounded. The other thing, too, if you're looking at a competitive school, UCs and CSUs, for example, they ask us every year for give us the top 15% of your senior class. And I think we talked about this before, but send us the top 15% of your senior class because that list of kids are the ones who are guaranteed admissions to our schools as long as they meet the other requirements for their senior year. Then, they're the ones that automatically have access because that's one of the things they tout is they guarantee that the top 15% of every high school gets automatic admission to a UC. Not necessarily the one they want to go to, but to one of them. Well, in our case, I ran it for our current class of 2018 next year, and we have 61 students who are in the 15%. That's 15% of our senior class. Those top 61 students all have higher than a 4.0 GPA. So out of 300 and however many seniors, that we have 375 or whatever that is. Can't do the math that fast in my head, but 61 of them, that's 15%, have higher than a 4.0. So what about the kid that has a 4.0 average? Sorry, you're not in the top 15%. Now you would be school down the street maybe, but not here. So that's another piece that has to get weighed out too. If you're going to send your kids to a school, I have a friend that works at Monte Vista, and their top 15% starts with 4.2. Right. Which so if you're just a B student, sorry, and that should be good. They should be proud of themselves. B's are fine.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's just so fascinating to me.
School system's fascinating.
It's so fascinating, but I think at the end of the day, life kind of plays itself out, and what you get from the environment of the school and from the teachers is so much more than just what you learn in the textbooks. And like you were saying, what the scores are not necessarily indicative of the education that's being put out at the school too.
Right. You drive by our parking lot at 5 o'clock at night, and it's at least half full because those teachers are still here helping kids, and that says a lot.
That's amazing
about the quality of school too. Is the parking lot empty, or is there still people there?
That's amazing. All right, well, let's talk about what you would do then with, say, somebody came in with $25,000 and just donated it to Branham. What would you do with that money?
That's a great question. I think I would use it probably for all the things we have that we rely on volunteers for, all of the support programs we have on campus. I think that's where I would put the money, is to hire actual real people. So we're not just relying on volunteers. We have a strong peer tutoring program, but we could always use more people to help with that, and to be able to pay them or pay some students for their time instead of just relying on the volunteers would be great. We have a lot of students that need social emotional support, that are dealing with a lot of stress and a lot of stuff going on, a lot of bad things going on in their homes. And right now we rely on a lot of volunteer counselors and things like that to come in and work with them, to be able to hire people to actually do that and be on our campus and available when you have a student having a panic attack because of something that's going on, or they come to school and just watch their dad beat their mom up or something like that. Those are things they're bringing with them every day. And
oh my God,
we have academic counselors on our campus that can help with some of that. But they need to be helped. They're working with 800 kids or 600 kids each. They need to be able to find time to work with all the other students too and help them with everything they need. So it's a strength.
Awesome.
Student support.
Great. Well, Cheryl, any parting thoughts for the members of the community or anyone at all?
If you want your child to get a fabulous education, send them to Branham. And the doors are open here if you want to come in and visit, talk. Happy to make an appointment with you or with any of our staff.
Cheryl, I think it's very indicative of how committed you are to the community, just by taking the time to sit down with me. Not too many people would do that. So
appreciate it. Thank you.
Cheryl, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
This is Cheryl Lawton, the principal of Branham High School here in San Jose, and Danny Gould with the Gould team selling Silicon Valley. We'll catch you in the next one.